Hey guys, if you like my videos, please like and subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate it, thanks. Also, don't forget to hit the bell icon so you never miss a chilling new story when it drops. They always say the mountain decides who gets to stay. I used to think that was poetic talk, something grizzled climbers mutter over tin cups of coffee at base camps. But as I trudged up the eastern ridge of Blackthorn Peak on the first week of January 2025, I started to feel the truth in it. The air had a certain bite to it, sharper than the forecast suggested. The clouds massed like they were holding their breath. Even the snow under my boots seemed to stiffen, as if bracing for something. My name is Daniel Hale. I am 34. Stubborn enough to keep climbing mountains most people overlook, and quiet enough that no one questions why I take solo trips every year. I tell friends it clears my head. The truth is a little heavier. I come up here to escape the noise, the duties, the unfinished business I seem to drag around with me like extra gear. On a mountain, all that weight just falls away. This year I picked Blackthorn because it's beautiful, underrated, and nowhere near a tourist map. Only the serious climbers bother with it. That meant space, silence, and a clean head. At least that was the plan. The morning I started the ascent, my pocket radio crackled with a weather alert. Largest blizzard in 30 years forming to the north. I listened just long enough to get the gist before switching it off. Forecasts can be dramatic, especially in winter. I dealt with storms, slept through worse ones than most people read about. Besides, I was prepared. Solid gear, tested tent, backup stove, emergency rations, and my reliable old walkie-talkie clipped to my chest strap. By noon the sky dimmed to a pewter gray. By 3 it had sunk into a brooding charcoal. When I reached the flat slab halfway to the summit, the wind picked up hard enough to sway me on my feet. I decided not to push my luck. I picked a sheltered spot between 2 boulders and started pitching my expedition tent. Bright orange, double-layered, built to take a beating. The familiar motions calmed me. Drive the stakes, tighten the cords, check the seams, double-check the zipper. When everything was taut and secure, I crawled inside, sealing the cold out and the warmth in. The wind slapped the fabric like an angry hand. I pulled off my gloves, flexed my fingers, and tried to pretend it was an ordinary storm. But the temperature dropped with unnatural speed. I could feel the cold gnawing through the layers, insistent and hungry. Outside, the wind roared louder as though it wanted to pick the whole world apart piece by piece. I switched on the radio again, not to call for help, just to hear another human voice if anyone happened to be on the frequency. I scanned through channels, catching a word here, a sigh there. All thin, distant sounds. Probably other climbers riding out the storm in their tents. The thought made me feel less alone. Until the static shifted, and a voice pushed through, clear, terrified, unmistakably human. "Please, is anyone out there? I need help, please." A woman's voice, a stranger, someone lost out in the same storm. And that's when everything began. The voice didn't sound like the thin, washed-out chatter I usually picked up on emergency frequencies during storms. This one carried emotion, a raw edge that cut straight through the static. I sat up immediately, nearly knocking over my stove. "Hello?" I pressed the button on my walkie. "This is Daniel Hale. I read you. What's your situation?" For a moment, only the wind outside answered, punching at my tent walls. Then the static thinned again, like someone trying to force their way through a crowd. "Help. Please, I'm lost. I can't." The voice cracked with panic. Definitely a woman, youngish, maybe late 20s. Breathless like she'd been crying or running. "Take a breath," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "I hear you. I'm here. What's your name?" Another burst of wind on her side, followed by the hollow echo of snow shifting. "Mara," she managed. "My name is Mara Ellison. I was hiking down after watching the sunrise. The storm came fast. I can't see anything. I found a shallow cave. I'm inside now, but I'm freezing." Mara Ellison. I repeated the name silently, anchoring it to something real, something I could focus on. A name meant a person. A person meant responsibility. "Okay, Mara, you're doing the right thing by staying put. Moving in a whiteout is dangerous. You said you're in a cave. How deep is it?" "Not deep," she said. "Just enough to block the wind. I dropped my axe somewhere before I found it. I can't cut more wood. My chest tightened. Losing an axe in these conditions could mean losing a life, but I kept my tone steady. You're going to be fine, I said. Do you have any kind of fire going? Barely, she whispered. Just a couple pieces left, the flames small. I swallowed hard, trying to picture her huddled in some rocky hollow, while the storm raged like a living thing around her. All right, we're going to work through this, I said. I need you to check your fingers and toes. Tell me if you still feel them. A few moments of rustling on her end. They're numb, she said, especially my hands. Rub them, I instructed, hard as you can. Do it while we talk. Keep the blood moving. She breathed sharply, either from pain or cold. Maybe both. Outside, the blizzard screamed, the kind of storm that feels personal. She came back on the line, her voice trembling. Daniel, I thought I was going to die out here before I heard you. I didn't think anyone would answer. You're not alone, I said. I'm stuck in this thing too. Same mountain, same mess. We'll ride it out together. Save your battery. We'll check in every so often, okay? Enough to keep each other going. There was a small, grateful sound in her throat. Thank you, she whispered. Really? I clicked my walkie off and held it against my chest for a long moment, listening to the blizzard rage around us. Two strangers in two pockets of shelter, a storm between us like a living wall. But now there was a line, thin and crackling though it was, that connected us, and I felt more responsible for that voice than I'd ever admit. I didn't sleep much that first night. I'd drift off for a few minutes at a time, only to jolt awake thinking the walkie had gone silent permanently. Each time I cracked my eyes open, the tent walls shuddered like something huge was leaning on them. The storm wasn't easing. It was tightening its grip. A couple hours before dawn, I clicked the walkie back on. The battery indicator glowed a steady yellow. Still good. I thumbed the button. Mara, you awake? Static filled the space between heartbeats. I pictured her buried in blankets, curled near the dying fire in her cave, waiting for me to give up on her. Then the static thinned. I'm here, she whispered. Her voice was small, but she was conscious. Relief washed through me. How's the fire? Still going, she said. It's weak, though. I'm keeping close to it. Good. I leaned back against my sleeping bag. We're going to ration our talking so the batteries last. Every couple hours, check in with me. If I don't answer immediately, wait. This storm's making the signal messy. I could hear her shifting around, maybe tucking the walkie closer for warmth. Daniel, can we talk a little longer now? She asked. I don't want to be alone yet. I hesitated, not because I didn't want to, but because a part of me already felt too connected to the voice on the other end. Out here, loneliness fills the air like a second atmosphere. When someone breaks through it, even by accident, you cling hard. Of course, I said. Tell me where you were headed before the storm hit. She exhaled like she'd been waiting for that invitation. I was doing a short winter hike, she said. I come out here every few months. I'm not a mountaineer like you, just someone who likes the quiet. I had a fight with my mom before I left. She didn't want me going alone. I told her she worried too much. A pause. She was right. I could picture her, bundled up, cheekbones red from wind, eyes bright with that stubborn love of the wilderness. I'd met her type dozens of times on trails and ridgelines, people who didn't treat nature like a challenge, but like a companion. What about you? She asked. Why'd you come up here? I let out a soft breath. Because mountains don't talk back, I said with a small laugh. Because they don't ask for anything except respect. And because when I'm climbing, everything I'm running from feels smaller. You're running from something? A few somethings, I admitted. She didn't push for more. I appreciated that. Some truths belong in the past and nowhere else. Outside, the wind roared like a freight train. It was the kind of sound that could make a person feel like the whole world was sliding sideways. But inside my tent, listening to Mara breathe through the speaker, the storm seemed just a little less hostile. Daniel, she murmured. Yeah? Thank you for talking to me. I don't feel as scared now. I looked at the walkie resting in my palm, its tiny speaker glowing faintly. "I'm not going anywhere," I said. And for the first time since the blizzard started, I felt like I meant it. The storm didn't break the next morning. If anything, it grew teeth. The wind changed from constant to unpredictable, slamming the tent in sharp bursts that made the poles groan. I couldn't see 3 feet past the doorway when I unzipped it to scoop fresh snow for melting. The world had turned into a swirling field of white, shifting so fast it felt alive. Inside, though, time took on a slower rhythm, one held together by the small orange glow of my stove and the fragile connection of the walkie-talkie. Mara and I kept our check-ins short at first, a simple, "I'm still here," or "the fire's okay," or "my hands are warming up." But as the hours stretched and the storm showed no sign of easing, those brief exchanges lengthened, turning into conversations we'd never have had in normal life. "Tell me something about home," I said during one of our early afternoon check-ins. Outside, the wind tore at the tent like it wanted inside. "Something you miss." She thought for a moment. I could hear her shifting, maybe hugging her knees closer to her chest. "My mom makes these blueberry pancakes every Sunday," she said. "I never appreciated them until I moved out. Now every time I smell blueberries, I think of our old kitchen window fogging up while she flipped them." I smiled despite myself. "Sounds nice." "What about you?" she asked. "What do you miss?" "Heat," I said, and she gave a small laugh. It was the first bit of warmth I'd heard in her voice. "But seriously, I miss my workshop. I fix old climbing gear. Half the stuff people bring in should have retired years ago, but I like giving things a second life." "You sound like someone who fixes more than equipment," she said. "I try," I said. "Doesn't always work." She didn't push, which made me trust her more. By evening, the storm still raged unchecked. I reinforced the tent again, added more snow walls around the wind-facing side, and double-checked every tie-down. When I finished, I sat inside and listened to the world howl like it wanted to tear the mountain apart. The walkie crackled faintly. "Daniel, are you there?" Mara's voice came through softer than earlier, but steady. "I'm here," I answered quickly. "How's the cave holding up?" "It's loud," she said. "Sometimes the wind hits the opening and echoes inside. Feels like the whole mountain is breathing." Her phrasing made something cold slide through me, but I forced my voice to stay calm. "You're safe. Caves are good shelter in storms like this." "I believe you." A pause. "Can we talk a little longer tonight? It helps." I leaned back, looking at the fabric shivering above me. "Yeah, I could use it too." We talked about everything and nothing. Her first hiking trip, my worst climb, her favorite books, the reason I started solo expeditions, the way snowfall changes the air before a storm, the strange comfort of knowing someone is out there fighting the same cold. Hours passed without us noticing. At one point she said, "I feel like I've known you longer than a day." "Storms do that," I said quietly. "They make strangers into something more." She breathed a soft agreement. Outside, the whiteout sharpened. The wind roared. Yet somehow, inside our tiny pockets of shelter, it felt like 2 small places on the mountain were holding their ground together. And I found myself hoping morning would bring a little more light. Not just in the sky, but in our connection. By the 3rd day, the storm had settled into a rhythm, a terrible, merciless one. It pulsed in waves, sometimes easing into a steady roar, sometimes lashing the mountain with bursts of wind that made the tent bend like an old bow. I'd stopped hoping for a break and started thinking like someone preparing to hunker down for as long as it took. My supplies were still holding, fuel low but manageable, rations fine, hands steady, mind mostly steady. But Mara was wearing thin. Our morning check-in started with silence. Not static. Silence, which was worse. I called her name 3 times before she finally answered. "Sorry," she whispered. "I was awake. I just didn't have the energy to talk right away." That set alarm bells clanging through my mind. "You need to keep moving in that cave," I said firmly. "Stamp your feet, rub your hands, don't let the cold settle into you." "I'm trying," she said. Her voice drifted a little, like she was only half there. I used the last of the wood during the night. The fire's burning low. I shut my eyes, imagining her tucked beside a shrinking flame, her breath fogging the cold air, fingers stiffening by the minute. Losing the axe had been a bad hit. Without wood, caves become tombs. "Listen to me, Mara," I said. "You have to move. Keep your blood going. Swing your arms. Curl your toes. Don't stop." "I know, I am." A soft exhale. "It's just hard. Everything feels heavy." I checked my own watch. She had been awake all night. Exhaustion slows survival instincts more than cold does. "You're dehydrated," I said. "Drink a little water, even if it's cold. It'll help you stay alert." There was rustling on her end. "Okay, doing it now." A few seconds passed. Then she said, "Daniel, can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Why do you climb mountains alone?" I rubbed a hand over my face. "I like the quiet. Up here there are no distractions, no obligations tugging at you from every direction. I feel clearer on ridges than I do in my own home." "Sounds lonely," she murmured. "It can be, but it's peaceful." Another quiet spell followed. I didn't feel it. I wanted her to rest her voice, not slip into the pull of sleep. "I keep thinking," she said after a while, "about how my mom begged me not to take this trip. We argued. I said things I didn't mean. And now, if I don't make it—" "You are making it," I cut in, more sharply than planned. "We're both getting off this mountain." She didn't agree. She didn't disagree. She just whispered, "I believe you," and the way she said it made my throat tighten. Later in the afternoon, her voice weakened again during a check-in. "My hands, they're not warming up this time," she said. "They feel like they belong to someone else." My pulse kicked. "Move them, right now. Wiggle every finger. Bring them close to your chest. Count out loud with me." She started counting, but halfway through her voice wavered. "Daniel, I'm so tired. I just want to lie down for a little while." Every hair on my arms stood on end. "No," I said, more forcefully than I ever had. "You cannot sleep. Do you hear me? Stay awake. Talk to me." A long, quiet stretch followed. I almost called her name again, but then, "I'm trying," she whispered. "I really am." The way she said it twisted something deep in me. I could hear the cold reaching for her, creeping in like a slow tide. And I knew then that waiting out the storm wasn't going to be enough. If I didn't act soon, Mara wouldn't survive her cave. I spent most of that evening pacing the length of my tent, 3 steps one way, 3 steps back, trying to outthink a storm that didn't care what I decided. Every few minutes I stopped to check in with Mara. Sometimes she answered right away. Sometimes she didn't. Each delay hollowed me out a little more. By the time night settled in again, I had made up my mind. I couldn't wait for the blizzard to pass. If I did, I would be carrying guilt down this mountain instead of her voice. I unrolled my map and headlamp, flattening the creased paper against my sleeping bag. "Mara," I said into the walkie, "I need you to tell me everything you remember about where you were before you reached that cave." Her voice came through soft, like she was pushing each word over a hill. I was hiking down Ridgeway Path. About halfway down, I saw a jagged rock outcrop shaped like a wedge. I passed that before the storm swallowed everything. Ridgeway Path, wedge-shaped outcrop. I traced the area on my map. It was north of where I had pitched my tent, skirting along the slope like a crooked scar. "Good," I said. "Anything else?" "After the outcrop," she murmured, "the wind shifted. I turned east without meaning to. I followed what I thought was the trail, but it must have been the wind cutting lines in the snow. Then I found the cave. It's small, half hidden behind hanging ice." Her breathing turned uneven. "Mara," I said, lowering my voice, "stay with me a little longer. I'm marking everything down." A soft rustle. "Are you leaving your tent?" "I might," I admitted. It wasn't a promise, not yet, but saying the words aloud made them real. "Daniel, don't risk it. The storm's too strong." "I've walked through worse." "You don't sound sure." I didn't answer. She was right. I wasn't. This storm felt like it had its own will. Something about the way the wind shifted, how quickly it erased everything. Even for a trained mountaineer, it wasn't a fight. It was surrender or get swallowed. But the alternative, listening to her fade, felt worse. I started packing an emergency kit: thermal blanket, rope, flares, extra batteries, crampons, protein bars. My hands moved fast as if they already accepted what my mind hadn't. "Daniel," her voice quivered, "please don't go out into the storm. I don't want to be the reason you freeze." "Save your strength. Keep awake," I said. "I'm coming." I didn't tell her the storm outside scared me in a way few things ever had, or that a part of me wondered whether the mountain was warning me to stay put. But survival isn't always about listening to fear. Sometimes it's about ignoring it. I layered up: jacket, face mask, goggles. The tent's zipper rattled like teeth under the wind. Before stepping out, I held the walkie close. "Mara, I'm leaving now. Keep talking whenever you can." A shaky breath came through. "Okay, I'll try." I crouched at the tent's entrance, hand on the zipper. The wind howled just inches away, a wall of violent cold waiting to swallow me whole. I took one long breath, steady, deliberate. Then I opened the tent and stepped into the storm. The world vanished in white. The cold hit me like a physical blow, not sharp, more like a weight dropped across my shoulders, pressing down, forcing the breath out of me. The wind shoved from every angle at once, so strong I had to brace my legs wide just to stay upright. My headlamp barely reached an arm's length. Everything else was a swirling, blinding white, the kind of white that erases the world. I clipped the tent rope to my harness before moving. Losing sight of your own shelter in a storm like this is easy. Sometimes all it takes is turning your body the wrong way. Once I was far enough that the rope tugged tight. I unclipped and marked the starting point with a flare stick stabbed upright into the snow. Its faint glow vanished almost immediately behind the storm. "Mara," I said into the walkie, voice muffled under my mask. "I'm on the move. Keep talking if you can." Her reply came through thinly. "Heard you. I'm here." "Good." Her voice gave me hope. A faint one, but enough. I moved in slow, deliberate steps, planting each foot like the snow might swallow me if I went too fast. The wind punished every mistake. Sometimes it pushed from behind, shoving me forward. Other times it whipped sideways, stealing my balance. Twice I had to drop to one knee and dig in with my crampons just to stay anchored. The mountain had turned into a maze, one shifting, twisting path carved by the will of the storm. But Mara's clues kept circling in my head: the wedge-shaped outcrop, the eastern turn, the cave hidden behind a curtain of ice. An hour in, I found the outcrop. It rose out of the white like the shadow of a great fin, jagged and black against the snow. Relief warmed my chest, just enough to cut through the cold. I pressed a gloved hand against it, grounding myself in something solid. "Daniel," her voice crackled through the walkie, distant and strained. "I'm still here." "Good. Stay talking. I'm close." Her next breath sounded uneven, hard, to stay awake. "Focus on my voice," I said. "Just listen, you and me, all right?" One step at a time. I kept moving east from the outcrop, marking the direction with small red flags I stabbed into the snow as I went. Normally they'd be bright as blood against the white, but the storm swallowed color as fast as it swallowed sound. My head throbbed from the cold creeping under my hood. My legs burned, and still I marched. At one point the wind eased, just slightly, and I saw a narrow gap in the ridge ahead. Ice draped over the entrance like frozen curtains. A cave. My heart kicked hard enough to feel under all the layers. "Mara, I think I see your—" Static drowned my words. Then faintly, "Daniel, I'm so cold." "I'm almost there," I said. "Hold on for me." I half stumbled, half ran toward the gap. The wind fought me, clawing at my jacket, pulling me sideways, but I forced myself through until the shadowy opening swallowed me. Inside, the storm quieted to a muted roar. My headlamp illuminated the cave walls, rough stone, frost, a narrow space that dipped backward into darkness. "Mara," I called, breath fogging the air. "I'm here." No answer. I pushed deeper into the cave, boots crunching over old layers of frozen debris. Then my light swept across something hunched near the back. A backpack, old, weather-worn, partly collapsed into itself, and beside it, bones wrapped in decayed fabric and frost. My breath froze in my throat. She had been dead for decades. yet her voice still murmured through the static of the walkie in my hand. For a long moment, I couldn't move. The cave pressed in around me, the walls closing like a throat, the air turning heavier by the second. My headlamp shone directly on the remains. Bones curled inward beneath layers of shredded fabric. A hiker's pack collapsed beside them like it had given up long before she had. "No," I whispered, though the word barely made it past my throat. I knelt down slowly, my gloves brushing away frost to reveal pieces of her gear. The fabric was stiff with age, frayed in ways no recent storm could cause. Her jacket, a bright color once, had dulled into a washed-out ghost of itself. Her boots were cracked, the leather splitting from decades of cold. The metal buckles on her pack carried a patina that only time could make. But none of that compared to the object lying near her skeletal hand. A walkie-talkie. Old enough to belong in a museum. The kind with a bent antenna and a faded frequency plate scratched by years of wear. I recognized it because my father had owned the same model when I was a kid. This one looked like it had been lost for decades, but the strangest detail, its tiny speaker was burned along one edge, as though the battery had surged once, long ago, and never again. Yet I had been speaking with Mara minutes ago. I reached for the pack, my breath catching as my fingers found an ID tag near the zipper. I tilted it under the light. Mara Ellison, permit year, 1995. My heart hammered against my ribs, the last time the region had recorded a storm like the one I was caught in now. A coldness that didn't come from the wind slid through me. I clicked my walkie on with trembling fingers. Mara, static. Mara, answer me. A thin crackle, a whisper of movement, then, "Daniel?" Her voice drifted through like breath on glass. Not warm this time, distant, layered with something I couldn't name, regret maybe, or the tail end of a long echo. I waited so long. I pressed the walkie to my forehead, squeezing my eyes shut. I didn't understand how any of this was possible, but the impossibility didn't matter. She had been real to me. Every conversation, every fear shared, every story whispered through the storm, that had been real. "I'm here now," I said, my voice cracking despite the cold. "I found you." "I know," she murmured. "I heard you. Walking, I tried to stay awake, I tried." A soft exhale carried across the static. The cold won before the sun came back. I gripped the walkie so hard my gloves strained. "Mara, how did we talk? How did I hear you?" "I don't know," she whispered. "The storm, the mountain, something let our voices meet through time." Another pause. "I wish I could have met you. I would have liked to see you. To talk beside a real fire, not through fading air." My throat burned. She continued, quieter now. "Daniel, my mother never knew what happened to me. She waited years. Tell her I'm sorry. That I loved her. She deserves closure." "I will," I whispered. "I promise." A long pause. "Take me home, Daniel," she said. Her voice faded away. Those were the last words before the walkie fell quiet, just settling into a hush, like someone laying their head down to rest. I stayed on my knees beside her remains, hugging her walkie to my chest, crying softly as the storm muffled outside, my sobs shaking the cold air. The world felt thinner now, and the blizzard between us, between past and present, had finally eased. I stayed in that cave far longer than I intended, long enough for the cold to prick at my fingertips and settle into my joints. But I couldn't make myself stand yet. Not while looking at the place where she had fought to stay awake. Not while imagining her huddled beside that small, failing fire, calling for help through a storm that swallowed her voice for 30 years. Eventually I forced myself to work. Survival teaches you to act even when the mind falters. I unrolled my spare thermal blanket, spread it carefully beside her remains, and lifted each bone with slow, deliberate movements. She had waited a long time for someone to find her. The least I could do was make the end of her journey gentle. As I placed the last pieces on the blanket, the walkie crackled faintly in my hand. I looked at it hopefully, but it stayed silent. I slung my pack onto my shoulders, secured the carefully wrapped bones inside, and stepped toward the cave mouth. The wind met me with a long, low sigh instead of a scream. Snow still drifted sideways, but I could see more than a few feet now. Shapes began emerging from the white. Rock, slope, the faint contours of a trail buried under fresh powder. The mountain wasn't done being dangerous, but it was no longer impossible. I clicked the walkie on one last time before my descent. "Mara," I whispered into the speaker, "I'm taking you home now." No answer. But somehow, as the wind curled around me, I felt the mountain listening. And for the first time since the storm began, it didn't feel hostile. It felt satisfied. The descent took the rest of the day and most of the night. My legs trembled with exhaustion by the time the ranger station's dim lights appeared through the thinning snow, glowing like distant lanterns in a sea of white. Each step felt heavier than the last, not because of fatigue alone, but because of what I carried in my pack. There was a solemnity to the weight, a responsibility that pushed me forward, even when the cold begged me to stop. 2 rangers rushed out as soon as they saw my silhouette. Their breaths puffed into the night like steam engines. "Sir, you're lucky you made it down alive," one called. "We just picked up that the storm was breaking. Come inside before you freeze solid." Inside the warm station, the contrast hit me so hard I swayed. Heat rose around me in thick waves, almost surreal after days of relentless cold. They sat me down, wrapped me in blankets, set a mug of something hot in my hands. Then one of the rangers asked, "Did you lose equipment up there? We noticed you're carrying something." I steadied myself before answering. "You'll want to take it," I said quietly, sliding the wrapped bundle forward. "It's a hiker. Her name was Mara Ellison." The room fell silent. The older ranger's expression shifted, recognition flickering in his eyes like a startled flame. "That name's on our missing list," he murmured. "Went missing in the winter of '95. They searched weeks for her, found nothing." I nodded. "The storm matched this one. She got caught, found shelter in a cave. That's where I found her." They exchanged looks, the kind that carry more weight than words. One of them excused himself to radio headquarters while the other stayed with me, asking gentle questions: where I'd been, how I'd found the cave, what drew me to that side of the ridge. I didn't mention the walkie. Not yet. Nothing about the voice that had carried across time. Some things are too bizarre to tell people who weren't there. Some truths need to stay hidden. By midday, they arranged transport to bring her remains to town. I followed closely behind. I felt I owed her that much. The next morning, I was given an address, a small weathered home at the edge of town, and told her mother still lived there. My stomach tightened as I walked up the path. How do you knock on a door knowing the person inside has waited 30 years for it? When she opened the door, a frail woman with silver hair pulled into a loose bun, her eyes widened, not in fear, but in something deeper: recognition, hope, dread. "Ma'am," I said softly, removing my hat, "my name is Daniel Hale. I found your daughter." Her knees buckled slightly, and I stepped forward, helping her inside. We sat at her kitchen table. I told her everything, not the impossible parts, not yet, but the truth that mattered. That Mara had survived longer than anyone guessed, that she'd fought hard, that she hadn't been alone in her final moments, that I had found a last note left by her that crumbled with age soon after he picked it up. I delivered the message she'd asked me to carry. "She wanted you to know she loves you," I said, "and she was sorry for the argument before she left." Those were her last thoughts. The woman pressed trembling fingers to her lips, tears sliding silently down her face. I didn't look away. Some grief deserves witnesses. "May I keep a photo of her?" I asked gently. "If you're comfortable with that." She nodded, rising slowly and shuffling to a shelf. She returned with a small framed picture. Mara smiling beneath the brim of a hiking hat, bright-eyed, alive, full of the kind of warmth that doesn't vanish easily. "This one," she whispered. I thanked her and held the photo as carefully as I'd carried her daughter down the mountain. Later that night, back home, I placed the picture on the small table beside my couch. Next to it, I set my walkie-talkie, the same one I'd kept close during the storm. Its battery had died on the descent. I hadn't replaced it yet. Sometimes when the wind outside picks up and the night grows still, I glance at the device. My fingers hover over the switch. Not because I expect anything, but because a small part of me, a part softened by her voice through the blizzard, hopes the mountain might open that strange doorway one more time. Just once, just enough to hear her say she made it dot wherever she went. The photo catches the lamplight when I lean back, throwing a soft glow across Mara's smiling face, and the walkie rests quietly beside it, waiting, just in case. I'm Dr. Midnight. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.